Today we're just talking about one important anniversary coming up. This April will be the 40th anniversary of the enactment by Congress of the Taiwan Relations Act, TRA. This is an important anniversary that's going to be commemorated in Taipei, in Washington, in places around the country. There'll be events that I know of in different parts of the country already, people are already preparing. And why is this important? Well, Congress was brilliant, really brilliant in passing the TRA in 1979. Think about it. Congress did not have the benefit of hindsight. Never been done before. And I don't use this word lightly, but it is a unique piece of legislation that has served U.S. interests for 40 years without the benefit of hindsight. And don't take my word for it as to what Congress intended. I asked a member of Congress, Mr. Lester Wolf of New York, who was present as a manager of the legislation as it moved through the House and then to the Senate. And he told me that the intention of the TRA was to protect Taiwan regardless of the One China policy. In fact, the TRA doesn't even talk about the One China policy. Now, the TRA is a very important part of our One China policy. I would say the most important part of our One China policy. Why? Because it's a law of the land. It is a public law that the Congress passed and the President signed into law. It is more important than the 3 joint communiques. Secondly, this is not explicit in the TRA, but it's an important inherent understanding. The TRA is not about a U.S. obligation to help Taiwan's self-defense. There's actually an inherent understanding of a mutual obligation that Taiwan also has an obligation to strengthen and enable its sufficient self-defense against China's threats of not only the use of force, but coercion. This is also an important fact that is not recognized by many in the TRA, that the word coercion is covered by the TRA. Thirdly, I would like to disabuse people of this notion that somehow in 1979, when the United States derecognized the Republic of China, the ROC, and recognized the People's Republic of China, PRC, in Beijing, that somehow the United States abandoned Taiwan. The United States never abandoned Taiwan, and the United States is not considering abandoning Taiwan today. That is not even for discussion as an issue in official circles in the executive branch or the legislative branch of the United States government. It might be an academic topic, but it is not an issue for United States government officials. In 1979, the very fact that we passed the TRA means that we continue to be supportive of the people of Taiwan. Now, what have been some changes since the Taiwan Relations Act was passed in 1979? I would say there have been a few important changes. One, 1982, President Ronald Reagan passed 6 assurances to Taipei as Washington negotiated with Beijing over what has now become the August 17, 1982 communique that talked about arms sales to Taiwan. Secondly, there was a Taiwan policy review in 1994. Now, that was the last and only Taiwan policy review. It established some, it relaxed some restrictions on our policy in terms of how we engage with Taiwan. Now, one of the interesting things about the Taiwan policy review is that it actually sanctioned, approved cabinet rank officials from the United States to visit Taiwan. Now, it did not need to have the Taiwan policy review because we already had a cabinet rank official, namely the U.S. Trade Representative, visit Taiwan in 1992. But nonetheless, it has been U.S. policy that we may send even cabinet rank officials. We have had 6 such officials visit Taiwan so far. And now, most importantly, the change that has taken place since 1979 is in Taiwan itself. Taiwan has liberalized from an authoritarian regime to a vibrant, mature, and proud democracy that it is in Taiwan today. And the United States is proud to call Taiwan an important partner that is a beacon of democracy. Now, there are implications because back in 1979, we were not supporting a Taiwan with people enjoying democracy. But today, we have shared values of democracy and of freedom. Now, we don't need to necessarily have these big events and big policies and big pronouncements in order to have changes. We've actually had some very important incremental improvements in how we engage with Taiwan. They might not make, be big headlines in the newspapers, but they've been important nonetheless. For example, did you know that we allow Taiwan's defense minister to actually visit the United States? Even Taiwan's defense minister may visit, and we've had 2 of such visits so far, and I was present at both of them. Taiwan's president, although he or she might make only technical transits through the United States, these so-called transits have been much more visit-like stopovers. He or she is allowed to have public events, engage with various peoples as well as officials, including members of Congress. We have had important meetings in the United States between diplomats, national security officials, and even generals and admirals. Taiwan was allowed into our visa waiver program. That's very important for California in terms of our engagement in economic and social and political ties. Other than changes, there have been important continuity as well. The United States and Taiwan continue to be important economic partners in trade as well as investment. And the United States provides to Taiwan important security assistance, both in terms of military training and significant arms sales. And we continue to abide by the Taiwan Relations Act, the 3 joint communiques, as well as the 6 assurances in our so-called One China policy. Now, what might be the outlook as we look into the near future for our engagement with Taiwan? My main point is that the United States' support for Taiwan has become much stronger under the Congress, the Trump administration, and the Indo-Pacific Command. What is the implication of this stronger support? The implication is that Taiwan has a very rare window of opportunity to strengthen not only its defense, but also its economy in order to protect the way of life for the democracy of the people of Taiwan. Taiwan should not waste this opportunity given by U.S. strong support for Taiwan today. So at the end of the day, I want to repeat that this is an important year for the 40th anniversary of the Taiwan Relations Act. This is an important milestone, but at the end of the day, it is only a symbolic milestone. It still takes substantive actions by Taiwan and by the United States to advance our mutual interests. And these interests include a strong and stable East Asia, namely in the Taiwan Strait. And we all have a role to play in terms of strengthening strategic communication, and that is what the commemoration of the 40th anniversary of the Taiwan Relations Act is all about. The strategic communication signaling that American support for stability and prosperity in the region remains strong.